tournament organizers prepare for many scenarios: crowd control, court scheduling, and security coordination. What they clearly did not anticipate was a practice session creating more disorder than the actual matches. Eala has not competed in a single official point at the 2026 Miami Open yet, and she is already the most talked about figure in the entire venue. The WTA seems completely unprepared for this. Drop a comment below. Do you think the WTA is doing enough to showcase Eala as the main attraction, or are they still acting like her rise in popularity caught them off guard? Let us know your thoughts. Now, let's break down what a practice session is usually supposed to look like. A few spectators casually walk by. Maybe some loyal fans stop near the fence and watch for a while. The player trains for about an hour, works on patterns with their coach, stretches, and then heads back to the locker room. No one changes their schedule. No one rushes across the grounds. Security does not need to adjust their setup. It is simply a practice session background activity at a tournament where the matches themselves are the main focus. That is how it looks for almost every player at the 2026 Miami Open. And then there is Eala. Fans showed up early to lock in spots along the fence. They packed whatever bleacher seating was available near the practice court. Phones were raised. Cameras began recording before she had even struck a single ball. Some people reportedly waited more than an hour just to secure a decent place to watch her warm up. Meanwhile, on nearby courts, players ranked much higher than her were practicing in front of noticeably smaller audiences. Read that part again, because it is the detail that matters most. Players with higher rankings, more titles, longer careers, and bigger trophy collections were drawing smaller crowds, while a 20-year-old seeded 32nd in the tournament was creating the kind of movement that forced tournament staff to adjust their routines. That is not a normal situation. That is not something that happens because of rankings, seedings, or any of the traditional measures the tennis world uses to decide who deserves the most attention. What took place on those practice courts in Miami was fans making a decision completely independent of the official hierarchy, and the rest of the venue following without hesitation. The WTA's role at an event like this is to manage the product, ensure the right courts host the right matches, allocate proper promotional resources, and keep the tournament running smoothly so everyone leaves satisfied. What they were not ready for was a player whose presence on a practice court could reshape the movement of thousands of fans before the tournament had even officially begun. The scheduling discussions, the court assignment debates, and the quiet conversations among officials about handling crowd control all point to an organization dealing with something outside its usual framework, because that framework is built around rankings. The top seed gets center court. The second seed gets the next biggest stage. Everyone else is placed accordingly. It is a logical system that works when the player generating the most attention is also ranked #1 in the world. It starts to fall apart when the player attracting the most attention is seeded 32nd. Now place the practice session story alongside the online numbers, because together they form a picture that is impossible to dismiss as coincidence or regional hype. A day-in-the-life training video featuring Eala reached nearly 100,000 views. Not a match highlight from a major event, not exclusive behind-the-scenes Grand Slam footage, just a simple training video showing routine preparation. The kind of content most professional athletes post and then move on from quietly because the engagement is too low to highlight. For Eala, that same type of content performs like it belongs to a player who has spent years building a global fan base. The audience is there, it is active, and it consistently shows up across everything she shares, regardless of the content itself. That level of steady engagement is what sponsors spend massive amounts of money to reach. It is also something that does not happen by chance and cannot be artificially created through marketing. It exists because a large number of people genuinely care about following her journey in real time. The Australian Open earlier this year delivered the data point that made the tennis world truly pay attention. Her pre-tournament press conference generated over 173,000 views at an event that also featured Novak Djokovic, Aryna Sabalenka, and Iga Swiatek. Her press conference, simply sitting and answering questions, outperformed those of players who have collectively won more Grand Slam titles than most eras of the sport combined. That number was not random. It confirmed something that had been building for months and could no longer be ignored. Around that time, one comparison kept coming up in tennis discussions: Emma Raducanu at the 2021 US Open. Raducanu was a qualifier who won the entire tournament without dropping a set, one of the most improbable achievements in tennis history. That story drew in audiences who had never even watched tennis before. Brands rushed in, media coverage exploded. The sport briefly reached entirely new audiences because one unexpected storyline broke through in a way traditional marketing never could. The analysts comparing that moment to what Eala is building are not exaggerating. The pattern is genuinely similar. A young player, a compelling narrative, and a rapidly growing audience across regions that tennis has historically struggled to reach. The difference is that Raducanu's breakthrough was concentrated into 2 weeks at a single tournament, while Eala's rise has continued across multiple events, continents, and months. It has not faded after a loss or slowed during a tough stretch. It has kept growing. And the reason it continues to grow comes down to something rankings and trophies cannot measure: connection. A real, emotional connection between a player and an audience that feels represented by her presence in the sport. The Philippines has a population of over 110 million people, with a passionate sports culture centered around boxing, basketball, and anything that brings national pride on a global stage. Tennis had never provided that community with a player to rally behind at the highest level before Eala emerged. When she made her run at the 2025 Miami Open, defeating Madison Keys and Jelena Ostapenko as a wildcard, ranked 140th in the world, the Filipino sports community responded the way people do when something they have been waiting for finally happens loudly and completely, in a way that does not fade after the tournament ends. The Pinoy Army, the nickname for her organized fan base, is far from casual. These are supporters who stay in the stands past midnight for late matches long after most crowds have gone home. They track her schedule across time zones. They travel. They fill any space she appears in, whether it is a practice court, a press conference room, or a stadium that has been upgraded to handle the demand she brings. That kind of loyalty does not follow rankings. It follows identity. Her visit to Nike headquarters in Oregon added another layer to the story, showing that the business side of the sport is paying close attention. Eala walking through Nike's campus was not just a routine promotional appearance. The way her image was positioned alongside icons of the sport signaled a long-term vision from a brand known for strategic decisions. Nike is clearly investing in a future where Eala becomes one of the defining faces of the game. When the biggest sports brand in the world makes a move like that publicly, the rest of the industry takes notice. The rumored signature collection tied to her Nike partnership should be viewed in that context. Signature lines are not designed for players ranked 32nd in the world. They are created for cultural figures whose influence extends beyond their sport and connects with wider audiences. The fact that these conversations are happening before she has even won a WTA title says everything about how the commercial world views her trajectory. Sam Querrey said it clearly on the Nothing Major podcast, and the comment quickly spread across tennis media and online discussions. He suggested that Eala might currently be generating more global curiosity than Aryna Sabalenka. Querrey, a former top 10 player, understands the sport at a deep level, and statements like that are not made casually. They come from experience and recognition of something unusual unfolding. Sabalenka has Grand Slam titles, years of consistency, and a global reputation built on sustained success. Comparing Eala's current profile to that level of star power in terms of attention is a bold claim, but the conversation it sparked was not about trophies. It was about which players people are actively searching for, discussing, and gathering to watch. Former American pro Steve Johnson simplified it even further on the same podcast, saying directly that she is the biggest draw in women's tennis right now. John Isner expanded on the idea, pointing to untapped markets and the impact of a star emerging from a region the sport has historically struggled to reach. He highlighted the massive crowds she attracts everywhere and emphasized a reality the sport should have recognized earlier. When you create a star who connects with markets as large as the Philippines and Southeast Asia, you are not just discovering a player, you are opening a door that stays open. What happened on the practice courts in Miami is the most visible example of all this, but it is not where the story began. It is simply the latest chapter in a rise that started a year earlier, when a wildcard ranked 140th entered Miami and left ranked 75th after defeating 3 Grand Slam champions. The WTA did not create this momentum. The rankings did not predict it. Marketing teams did not plan it. The fans decided, and now those same fans are reorganizing themselves around a practice court, while tournament officials quietly try to adapt to something their system was never designed to handle. When a practice session draws bigger crowds than actual matches, the sport has no choice but to take notice. Eala is not waiting for recognition from the WTA. The fans have already made that decision for them. Hit the like button if you are following this story, subscribe for more, and drop your Miami Open predictions in the comments.